Okay, so we'll get started with the brown rice. The ratio of water to rice is 1 1/4 cups of water for every cup of rice. So I've measured out 1 cup of brown basmati rice and 1 1/4 cups of water. You could also use a liquid such as chicken broth, beef broth, or vegetable broth if you prefer for flavor. And as I told you in my previous video, I like to saute any grains that I cook, well, really toast them on the saute setting before I add liquid. So I'm just going to let that pot heat up for a second. It's supposed to beep like that. That is normal, remember. It is going to make some different noises that we just have to get used to, and then you'll feel a little more comfortable using the Instant Pot. It's really great for the things that we're going to be doing today, like grains such as rice. I know we did oatmeal and quinoa in my last video, and we'll move on to things that are just slightly maybe more intimidating and take a little bit longer to cook today. So we're going to let this heat up a little bit. Remember that once it gets hot, you don't want to touch it. I do have my little mitts here. I don't really need any of my other accessories today. Just maybe something to stir the rice around once I put it in the Instant Pot. And I believe I have that. Yep, over here. Oops, I just washed it. So I'm going to use this heat resistant spoon. You can use a spatula or whatever, or a wooden spoon or whatever you'd like. So that's heating up. I'm not going to add any oil or anything. I'm just going to add my rice. And we'll just give that a minute to come to temperature. And again, you don't have to do this for very long. You're just trying to get a little bit of toasting to it, and that kind of helps to bring out the fragrance and the flavor a little bit more, so you'll have a little bit more satisfying dish. Okay, so we've given that a few minutes to toast. I'm going to give it another quick stir. And then remember to change modes. I'm going to hit the cancel button, and that'll turn off my saute. I'm going to take my 1 1/4 cups of water and pour that in there. And I'm just going to put a pinch of salt in there, but I'm not going to add any other flavorings or oil or anything, although you can. If you want to flavor this rice in advance, you certainly can add something. I kind of like to just add the salt, and that way the flavor profile is a little bit more versatile when it's all done. So now, come on, put my lid on, and I'm going to hit pressure cook. And the time for the rice is about 22 minutes for brown rice. And we want to make sure that our valve is set to sealing and everything is locked. And now all we do is wait. So I'm going to again leave my keep warm setting on for this. It will stay warm. It will continue to absorb a little bit of liquid. It's going to have about a 10-minute natural pressure release. So once we get to that point, we can talk about next steps. So we reached our natural pressure release of 10 minutes. So I'm going to reach over and carefully move our valve to venting. And you can see there's not a ton of pressure left in there because we were just making the beans, and we had a fairly long natural pressure release. And I'll hit cancel on this, or just the rice, I'm sorry. We're making rice and a fairly long natural pressure release. So you can hear that valve dropped. It was a little bit of a click. And remember, we're waiting for this one here to go down. So that's done. And now we can remove our cap or top from the Instant Pot. And I'll go ahead and show you the rice. Just a second, I gotta move some things around behind the camera here. So you can see there's still some steam coming out of there, but all of our liquid is absorbed. And the rice is pretty soft and easy to stir. So the recipe that I'm planning on doing is I had some tomatoes and growing in my garden, and some basil that I had on a pot on the porch. So I'm going to do a basil and tomato in the rice with some olive oil and rice vinegar. And I decided to make some black-eyed peas to add to that. You could use any kind of bean that you think might taste good in there. You could use chickpeas. White beans are a traditional choice, like cannellini beans. Remember that the ratio of liquid to beans is about 3 to 1 for pretty much every type of bean. And the black-eyed peas are going to go about 20 minutes. Some beans go longer. Like black beans, I think, are usually a little bit longer, and some are shorter, like lentils are much shorter. I did include a chart in the material along with this video, so you can always refer to that. And I usually keep that handy when I'm making up recipes, just so that I can double check those cooking times and liquid to bean or liquid to food ratio. So I've measured out, I was going to just do 1 cup, but I had like a tiny bit left after that. So I guess I'm going to do 1 1/4 cups of black-eyed peas. And you do not need to soak them. If you soak your beans, your cooking times are going to be a little bit shorter. So just remember that. And that's also included on the chart. So I've added my beans. I'm going to go ahead and add my almost 4 cups of water. And then I usually with the beans will put just like maybe a teaspoon and a half of salt in there. Just not really measured, just kind of guesstimated. And that's all I need to do for that. So I'll go ahead and put my top on there. And I just washed the pot that I used for the rice and put it back in there. Remember, I do have a backup extra pot, but you know, the rice was pretty easy to wash out, and I just transferred it to this large glass bowl since that's the bowl we're going to be using to mix up our dish anyway. So we'll set this at pressure cook. We're not sauteing first at 20 minutes. We'll make sure that our valve is set to seal because I did turn it to release the pressure. It will have to come up to pressure again, but it'll probably take a shorter amount of time because the pot was just previously hot. So we'll let that come up to pressure and cook for 20 minutes. We're going to give it a natural pressure release of at least 10 minutes. With beans, you can pretty much just leave them to completely natural pressure release. You could even turn off the keep warm and just let them release until that valve drops on its own. Or you can do a combination of 10 to 15 minutes of natural pressure and then release any remaining pressure there might be. There probably won't be much, just like you saw with the rice. So while that's cooking, I'm going to prepare the rest of my ingredients. And when the beans are done, we can put our dish together. And I will include the recipe that I'm using as a link to this video. My black-eyed peas are at 16 minutes. And my button is still up. I'll show you that. The little silver button. So I'm just going to release what's left of the pressure here, and it's probably not very much at all, you can see. So that'll go down here. You can see it start to drop. There it goes. So now our remaining pressure is released from there. I did move some of my rice to a smaller bowl. I want you guys to remember that beans and grains are going to double at least in size when you cook them. So we'll see this with our beans too. So I started with 1 cup of rice uncooked. This is 1 cup of cooked rice. Actually 1 1/2 cups of cooked rice, and then I have another cup of cooked rice that I put in a separate container to just put aside in case I want to use it for something else during the week. So I have cut up my tomatoes and basil and made this cute little smiley face here. I mixed together my rice vinegar and olive oil, and the reason that mine is this color is because I used date sugar instead of white sugar, but you're welcome to use whatever you want if you do choose to make this recipe, and you certainly don't have to. It's just an example of how you can combine beans and grains when you're meal prepping in a way that's pretty easy. So let me get this stuff out of the way. If you guys saw the rest of my kitchen, it's so tiny, so everything is just ends up piled up together. And I do have a little bit of liquid left in here, actually. And sometimes that will happen. So you can do a couple of things. I'm going to leave it and just remove what I need with like a slotted spoon because, you know, you can use that liquid for cooking and stuff. So the beans are really well cooked though. I can feel that they're very tender just from stirring them with the spoon. Let me see if I can show you here. I'll move my little smile out of the way. And we'll put them here. And I can show you, like, I can just kind of squish them with the spoon with a little bit of pressure. So they still kept their form, but you can crush them if you want to. Now, the thing about the cooking time with beans is it's pretty hard to like overcook beans. It's just they might not hold their form as well. So say that you know that you want whatever you're making, like black beans or kidney beans, you want to make refried beans or you want to puree them, then I would go with a little bit longer cooking time. If you want them to be firm and really hold their shape well, then I would go maybe like a minute or two shorter. Um, that's especially true with more delicate things like lentils. If you go, I think those are the only ones I really gave you a range on your chart, because if you want them to be firm for salad, you'd want to go on the shorter end. If you want them to be more like crushed, and less formed for things like a meat substitute, say you're doing like a lentil sloppy joe or something like that, or a soup where you're going to puree them, you'd want to go a little bit on the longer side. So let me get my spoon here. Oh, actually, I think it's over here somewhere. So I've measured out a cup, and now I'm going to put that in with my rice. And then we did a cup and a half of rice, so maybe we'll do a cup and a half of the beans as well. Beans are a great, these are black eyed peas, still a type of legume. They are a great source of fiber and of protein. So if you're trying to find other ways to get your protein besides from animal products, I definitely recommend adding more beans into your diet. And you can see that we still have like a lot left in there, probably at least another cup. And again, if we're going to freeze them or store them, sometimes it's nice to leave them in that liquid depending on what you want to use them for. That's entirely up to you. So let me just add my ingredients. And somebody just came to my house, so I apologize if you get a lot of dog barking in the background. Do the best I can here. So I'm adding this basil and tomato, and again, this is all nice and fresh from my yard and my little window box on the porch. And I'll stir it up to combine it. Trying not to make a huge mess, which is something that I normally do. And then I've got this dressing, and I can always make more of this if I feel like it needs more. It only has a tablespoon of olive oil in it, so it's still pretty light on the oil. It's mostly rice vinegar. And then again, I use that natural date sugar. I could even use a little bit of the bean liquid if I felt like it needed to be a little more liquidy. So I'll show you what I've got here. And again, with any more delicate vegetable or herb, like tomatoes or basil, you're going to add them when you're done cooking. So here's what I've got. And it's a nice salad, either as a side dish or maybe even a main dish, because it does have that plant-based protein in it.